Hello, I'm Liz Zorab of Byther Farm. Welcome to my podcast, Gardening Demystified.
This is a Byther Farm podcast.
Hello, today I'm being joined by Torsi Wooldridge, who is a head kitchen gardener at a private family estate. Amazing job to have. Hello Torsi, welcome.
Thank you, Liz, for having me.
Oh no, absolute pleasure to have you here. Such an amazing job you do. It's like everybody's dream job, or maybe not everybody's, but many gardeners' dream job.
Yes, yeah, and it's definitely one of mine. I've been there for 5 years this September. I got there and it was completely run down, and I went in, redesigned it and made it into what it is today.
So what sort of size area are you gardening for your kitchen garden?
The vegetable garden is just over half an acre, but I also manage the propagation for the estate. I have 2 polytunnels, 2 glass houses and a shade tunnel. So all in all, it most probably encompasses about an acre of land.
And is it just you working on that?
It's just me working in the vegetable garden. We do get in a seasonal picker just to take the workload off, because as you will know yourself, picking is almost like a full-time job in itself. Mm-hmm. And along with all the planting of vegetables, it becomes a little bit overwhelming in the main season.
So that's amazing. So you've been there 5 years. You got there and it was it just a field, or was it had it previously been a garden?
It had previously been a vegetable garden, but there was no structure to it, and on private estates they like everything to look quite pretty. So with it being a working garden, it really has to have that sex appeal of looking absolutely amazing. You've got to wow people, because obviously when they have guests coming over, you've got to be different to everybody else's vegetable garden that they could potentially have seen. So
let's think about it. So you're in this garden. Is it laid out in small beds, raised beds? What sort of layout have you got there? I'm absolutely fascinated by this.
Oh, thank you. I went for a formal design because the people that I work for, they like quite formal gardens, and I find with crop rotation that works perfectly, because you've got your 4-bed crop rotations that you can do. So it's very symmetrical. There's no raised beds. It's just 5 by 5 meter beds, 4 on each side.
Say that again. 5 meters by 5 meters.
Yeah.
Wow.
So quite chunky size beds. And then I've got a C shape around the outside, which is another 4 big beds, which are 11 meters by 5 meters. So it's quite a nice chunk of land.
How nice.
Yeah.
And so what methods do you use? Because obviously I need to say I know nothing about methods do you use. Do you garden organically? Do you use a particular type of garden? Do you do no dig? What do you do?
So I'm an organic gardener. Apart from that, I just try and incorporate companion planting as my organic side of me. So I get beneficial plants to attract beneficial insects into the garden.
Nice.
To help with any pest and disease.
Tulsi, one of the questions I ask everybody is, so I want you to answer this without, I don't think on the answer too long. Just give me your first reaction. Yeah. What's your favourite vegetable at the moment?
Parsnips is one of my top, because they go with a roast every day of the week.
Yeah.
I prefer those over potatoes.
You're a woman after my own heart, yes.
Jeez, I do. And they are just such a satisfying crop to grow. Although I think this year has just been particularly hard with the weather that we've had over winter. And I don't know about you, but I'm struggling in the veg garden.
Yes. So I've had about half of my parsnips came, or 2/3 of my parsnips have germinated, but it's not a really high germination rate. So I've re-sown in the last 10 days.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Stressful though. I'm so stressed at the moment. The onions have got shanking. So I've got onions that have been shanking in the veg garden.
Okay, would you like to explain to people what that is? She's not saying something rude.
No. So I've never come across it before, and I noticed that the outer leaves of my onion started to die back. So this is my... Oh, sorry, the telephone's ringing in here.
That's okay.
It's so
It's a really, it's a really good phone phone tone as well.
I put my phone on silent and everything. Sorry.
So
Yeah.
that's okay. So the onion leaves are they're dying back, are they? Or
Yeah,
they're going yellow, or
they've sort of wilted. So where they're nice and upright,
yeah.
they've all just started to droop. And I looked it up in one of my favourite vegetable books, and it said if you dig one up, slice it down the middle, you'll get rot in the centre. So you get that horrible onion rotting smell, which apparently is shanking. But apparently, so I've tried to Google it on the internet, can't find anything apart from one thing saying it's a new disease, soil-borne disease. But the book that I found it in, I think was written in the 80s, so it can't be that new. I'm putting it down to the weather we had over autumn, because they are my Japanese senchuei onions. So they were obviously sown over August, overwintered, and obviously they just started to bulb up because they're a first early onion, and I'm very disheartened by it all.
Okay, so I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
do you remember the name of the book? Because it would be really interesting to know.
Yeah, sorry. I have actually written a few bits down because I always forget. It's the I can't pronounce. Dr. DG.
Oh, Dr. Hessian.
That's it.
Brilliant.
Because that is my go-to Bible.
So are those the expert books?
Yes.
Yes, they're great, aren't they?
They're absolutely
brilliant.
amazing. I've gone through all of my vegetable books this weekend trying to find the shanking. I've got one bit of information off of the internet which says it's a new disease, but I mean, he wrote his books years ago, didn't he?
Yes, I mean, I think they get updated on a fairly regular basis, but if you've got an old book, then
yeah.
So I'm really sorry, the onions are not. So what are you going to do this year about onions? For onions, are you going to sow more? Are you going to plant more sets?
I think I'm going to, well, the Japanese senchuei onions, they don't seem to do them as sets. I could be completely wrong there, but if anybody wants to correct me, I'm fine with that. And I love growing those because they're a first early and they'll be ready June, July. So they're ready quite early before the main season onions. But because of the trouble that I am having with onions, with a lot of disease in the veg garden, I'm going to turn to sets because sets are less prone to soil-borne pest and disease.
Yeah.
Whereas if you grow from seed, which is what I do with my onions, then they are more prone to getting pest and disease. So there's good and bad sides on sets and seeds.
Absolutely.
But I think you've always got to do what works for you best.
So I've always grown from onion sets before, and this year for the first time I'm growing some from seed to try and do a comparison. So I put in onions in the autumn, heat treated onion sets in the autumn. They're looking almost ready. If we can keep the moles away from the onion bed, because I watered them a few days ago and then suddenly thought, oh, that was like an invitation to the moles. So they've run riot through the onions. And I spent quite a long time today pushing them all back in and trying to firm the soil around them again. But, it's fine. We share the space with the moles, voles, mice and everything else that lives here. And it's just one of those things. But I've also grown some shallots, some of the long pink. I can't even remember what they were called. Zebruni, or I think they were, or Zebrune. So they're like a long French cooking shallot, and also some Bedfordshire champion, which are around, from seeds as well. So it's the Zebrune shallots and the Bedfordshire champions, and they are teeny tiny, just waiting for me to plant them out now. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, they'll be much later, I would imagine.
Yes, yeah.
So you
I do love an
clapped when I
onion.
said Bedfordshire. Are they good?
Yes.
Are they a good variety?
Yes, I do. I do occasionally enter those into shows, and it's not a variety I've found that you can get from sets. I don't know if
Well, I haven't seen the sets
tried
before.
which is why I like growing from seed, because you get a lot more different varieties than you do with sets. But they're a great storer as well. They'll see you through the whole of winter and to your next onion crop.
Oh, fantastic!
So they're really good size. Really good size.
Now you've just let slip that you enter stuff into shows.
Nothing this year.
Okay, nothing. But how have you done previously?
Practicing.
What sort of thing have you entered previously?
Onions are definitely one of my favourites to enter in for. I'm actually, ironically, I sowed the giant onions this year.
Mm-hmm.
I've got them planted out into the beds. I've only got I think 1 or 2 rows of them, so I was going to see how they got on, because even though the shows aren't on this year, we obviously didn't know at the beginning of the year what was going to happen with that. So yeah, it would be good to see how they evolve into these ginormous, huge onions.
It'll be interesting to taste them as well and see if they're much milder.
Yes, because it's funny, because even with, I was very much like show veg was just for show and it was inedible, but actually there's quite a lot of varieties of just normal veg that actually grow really uniformly that you can enter in for the shows. So just your standard, bolt hardy beetroots,
Mm-hmm.
your normal onions, just as long as they are pretty much exactly the same size and looking pretty amazing, you can just enter them into the show and then you find you're a winner.
Nice. So Torsi,
yes,
I'm sure you won't mind me sharing that you're not an old girl like I am. You are a really quite a young generation to find yourself in the position of head gardener.
oh, thank you.
So what did you do leading up to this role? So did you go to college? Are you self-taught?
Yeah, I've always had a passion for gardening since I was a kid, and through health issues I had to change the job that I was in, and that led me on to just literally getting into horticulture. So I did my RHS level 2. I did, ironically enough, a spray course, because it was just something that was added onto your CV that would just make me look better. And then by pure chance, I think I was just so lucky that the head gardener on another private estate offered me the job of a kitchen gardener, and it's just sort of evolved from there. And I've just managed to have this bug for vegetable gardening. Brilliant. And head in books for years. I'm not so much now head in books. It's more if I've got a problem with something, then I'll do a load of research and find out what's going on. But it's amazing how your experience builds up, and just it's like a jigsaw puzzle, really, isn't it? You start off with a few pieces, and then as the years and years go by, everything just clicks in together, and you've got a sort of a near finished jigsaw piece.
Near finished. I don't think it's ever completely finished with gardening, is it? You think, well, that's it. I'm getting a hang of this, and then nature throws something else at you.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think that's the exciting thing about gardening, is that you never know it all, and even if you feel that you are getting bored in a certain area, you can go and specialize in something else, or you can dabble in other things. So
yeah,
it's a wonderful.
It's good. It's an ever evolving. Have you ever done any ornamental gardening that's purely ornamental rather than just veg?
Not. I run the cut flower garden along with the vegetable garden, which is a separate area.
Mm-hmm.
I try and learn as much as I can from the head gardener on the estate, because he's just absolutely amazing. But a lot of that's like grass cutting, hedge cutting, just plant management, putting in annuals, putting in bulbs. So it's definitely more of a rotation. But
okay. And did you say you're raising all those? Are you raising all those annuals in modules and things like that?
Yeah, so we try and grow as much as we can, or propagate what we need for the estate. So I also manage the propagation side of everything, which I've got an amazing lady who does it all. I just do the management of it.
So she spends hours putting seeds into modules and taking cuttings and all of that.
And I just manage what needs to be done, quantities, making sure she's watering. I've been sort of educating her for the last couple of years, because she's absolutely amazing. She's like a diamond in the rough, and she has just leapt on leaps and bounds.
Oh,
and it's amazing to see somebody evolve as well, because obviously I was, we were all there at one point in time, and especially I think if you've got somebody that can help get the best out of you, I think that's what I like about the sort of management side of that, is watching somebody develop. Basically, they're doing the hard work for you, really, aren't they?
Well, there is that. Alternatively, they are honing a really fine craft. Shall we think of it like that? So you've got cut flowers. I would love a huge cutting flower garden. I would love to have enough space here just to have an area that we could dedicate and say, that's just pure frivolity. That's just and I have got the patrons garden, so I have got an area that I'm growing flowers in it just because I wanted some ornamental space.
Yes. Sorry, that phone's
That's all right. Do you know what? So far, we've had telephones, microwaves, partners walking in, dogs barking. It's fine. It's real life, isn't it? And, and every podcast I listen to has a bit of real life in it, and that's great. If we were in a studio, actually, right at the moment, whenever I watch anything on the telly, that's all done from people's homes. There is no studio stuff happening, or there is very little studio stuff happening. So I think noises off is absolutely fine. So what sort of, I'm going to go back to your cutting garden. What sort of things you're growing? Have you got lots of dahlias and things, or is it more modern things? Although dahlias, I think, are having a bit of a resurgence at the moment, aren't they?
Dahlias are amazing. So when I was younger, I thought they were just big and blousy and had no place in any kind of gardening scheme that I'd ever want. But as I've got older, it's funny how your tastes change, or you find a purpose for something and you kind of go, oh, do you know what? Actually, I changed my mind on that. But I'm absolutely mad about dahlias. You see them at the shows and they're all perfection, but as a cut flower, they just fill a bouquet beautifully, don't they?
Yeah.
Just, big and blousy and a real statement. And I think as well, because obviously the family's house that I work for is so big, you almost need real big statement plants to make an impact. Otherwise, a little posy would sort of just get lost. But, at home, a little posy in a jam jar is absolutely beautiful. But, when you're trying to do a nice big display, it's got to be quite big and showy.
Yes, so lots of hydrangea heads, because they make a huge statement, don't they? And so what sort of dahlias are you growing? I've done the obvious thing. I've got cafe au lait and cafe royal Olay.
Do you know what? That is the one thing I think that lets me down with my gardening is names of plants.
That's okay. So it's the pale peachy, almost cream colour dahlias, and then there was a rogue one in the set that I bought. They were all supposed to be this sort of like almost like coffee coloured and coffees and creams and very sort of peachy colours, and then there is this one that is shouting in your face, da, 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 electric pink.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's amazing. Of all these dahlias I've got, that's my favourite because it's the one that wasn't supposed to be there.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, yeah. No, I think, yeah. I try and go for like all different types of colours, because I noticed that for some reason, I naturally go for particular colours, and then when you put a bouquet together, you're just like, oh, it's all purples.
Yeah.
And then they say like orange makes it pop, so I've tried to invest in a bit more orange flowers, orange dahlias. Because I bought some David Austin roses last autumn, which is lovely.
They are lovely. Are they coming into flower now?
They've got a few buds on them. They were like the bare root ones, so they weren't. I think next year and the year after they're going to be absolutely stunning. Yeah. But it's just this year.
I should have asked you before. Which part of the country are you in?
So I'm in the south, Chiltern. I work in the Chiltern area, quite high up on top of one of the hills. So I get hit with the wind and the cold and everything Mother Nature has to throw at me.
So although you're in the south, you're actually your garden could be further north, really, for what it's getting chucked at.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's quite exposed. It's not where I would put my vegetable garden.
It's what you've got. It's what you've got to work with. So amazing,
yes,
amazing. Yeah, we've got. I don't know if you're familiar with our garden. It has a lovely little microclimate. We're right down on the River Severn.
Yes.
So we've got coastal winds, but we've also got this kind of beautiful microclimate that makes it very mild. So we have got all our elderflowers are in full flower at the moment. Our roses, one of my David Austin roses is in full flower. Peonies are starting to open.
Oh yes, peonies.
Peonies, they're lovely.
They're beautiful.
So we're really lucky that it's actually where a lot of our garden is very ahead in terms of reaching. I was going to say maturity, and that's not quite the right word, but for being in bloom. Yes. It's quite far ahead, so we're very lucky. And I know when I'm making videos, I quite often have to say, need to check for the area that you're in, because because climate here will be different. As people are sort of saying, oh, we haven't even got any leaves on our elderflower yet, and I'm saying, oh well, ours is in bud and just about to pop the flowers open. So it makes such a difference where you are in the country. So it's definitely worth checking that you're in the south, but you're gardening in quite an exposed, windy site.
Yes.
And you then said, ooh, peonies.
Yes, they're rather lovely.
You like the big blousy flowers?
Yes.
Yeah, so do I.
I've turned into a big blousy flower myself.
So are you then countering the big blousy showy flowers with lots of small fine fluffy things, all spiky leaved things? And
I grow quite a lot of like annual cut flower grasses. So ones with beautiful dark green leaves with red going through them, and like bells of Ireland. What else have you got? Foxgloves. The alliums are absolutely fabulous for this time of year. Yeah. Honesty, just Achillea.
I love honesty. It's such a lovely plant to grow.
Yes, yeah. It's so tall. I didn't realise how tall it grew.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know
absolutely. So if you're not familiar with honesty is the plant from our childhoods that you kind of don't even notice the flower, but what you will have noticed is the seed heads, which are like a paper disc.
Yes.
And then you peel off each side, and it reveals the seeds, and there's a shiny centre. And when we were children, we would have quite often used those dried seed heads as Christmas decorations.
Oh, did you? Oh, that's a brilliant idea. I just remember my grandma being like, we need to collect seeds.
Yes. So yes,
Collect
well
the seeds.
I think
Christmas
I have a
decorations.
feeling we used to throw the seeds away, as in throw them back on the ground.
Yes.
Not in the bin away, but throw
Yeah.
those on the ground, which as a child, obviously, we didn't know what we were doing, was propagating. But yeah, so we used to, then our teachers would then spray those discs bright gold or silver, and we'd make
What a
table
great idea.
decorations out to them. So I'm sure lots of people have got that memory.
Yes. Yeah.
But yes, honesty is a really pretty flower. So then the next, following on from your flowers, have you explored using vegetables in your flower displays?
Oh, yes. Yes.
It wasn't a trick
I
question.
had to think about that. I had to think about that for a second. So red cabbages, absolutely stunning. But I always find sometimes you can get a bit of a glut, or they all come together, and if they don't hold very well on the land, you've just got to harvest them before they split.
Yeah.
And if I have excess, it's great if you can like scoop the centers out and use that as your vase. So you actually use a cabbage as a vase. And that
Wow.
is, yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I just normally shove it. I know it's not very environmentally friendly with Oasis, but a lot of people like turning to moss instead of Oasis, because so there are alternatives for flower displays. And the other one is using carrots actually in your vase. You hang the carrots inside the vase so they're covered in water.
Wow.
Same as with lemons and limes. So I won one of the Henley Show flower displays. So I cut up slices of lemons and limes, and then you put one smaller vase in a bigger vase, fill it up with water, and put the lemons and lime slices so it goes up the vase.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely makes sense. So you've got it, it's effectively lining it, but you're not actually going to put your flowers into citric water because there's another vase on the inside.
Yes, yeah. And that is so
Fantastic.
effective. It doesn't obviously last very long because, the water goes a dodgy colour and the lemons and limes start going a bit funny. But if you just have like an event, or you've got people over for a dinner party for a couple of days, it's absolutely amazing. It's good to.
Wow, what a brilliant idea! Right, I'm stealing that one.
No. Pinterest. That is.
You will see.
Absolutely
very soon
amazing.
there'll be, here's this thing I've been doing. I made it all up myself.
That is amazing. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, incorporating vegetables into a flower display it's all a plant, isn't it?
It is absolutely all a plant. I did a very small display. I entered the only time I've entered a village show. You had to incorporate a piece of kitchen equipment into a display. So I used those old-fashioned weighing scales that have, a basket on one side and weights on the other, and I used the little baskety bowl bit as my bowl for putting the Oasis in. And I put the flower. I don't remember what the flowers are, but what I do remember is spending hours wiring mushrooms onto wires so that I could put these mushrooms in the display.
That is brilliant.
I came away with a first. It was the only time I've entered, and I got a first. And I was like, I don't need to enter again because I've done that now. Anything else is just going to be a disappointment. But yeah, so that would be that was really interesting. And obviously that mushrooms that are wired in and they're sitting above the water line, they're going to dry out really quickly. So that's a short-lived display as well. But I think the potential for using veg in flower displays is completely underused.
Yes, I think the best thing about trying to use veg is, well, it just brings out your creativities of and just thinking slightly differently to, don't just do a normal flower display, just do something that's completely like abstract or strange or different, and just see how it turns out. Really.
So this year I purposely have saved some leeks, And I've also planted some of the leeks into my flower garden, ready for when they flower, because they're, you were talking earlier on about how lovely alliums are at the moment.
Yes.
Well, I love leek flowers. They're just as pretty.
Yes.
And so I've got those, and hopefully I'll then have those across the flower border as well. How lovely would they look? I suppose the only thing is, are they going to smell leaky when they're next to your roses in a display?
Oh.
Is someone going to walk down the corridor and not go, gosh, that smells beautifully of roses? They're going to go, I can smell leeks.
You'll have to tell me how you get on with that one.
I will do.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So, Torsi, I'm going to move on a little bit from my glib leek and rose bouquet.
That's brilliant.
To talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, which how long ago did you start that?
Years ago.
Years ago. Okay, so
I remember.
I found your channel a couple of years ago, and I really liked that you were planting veg, you were talking to the camera, you were explaining what you were doing, and it was just absolute no nonsense. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. Off we go. And it was just really refreshing. I really liked that it was a young woman who was obviously working, a market garden or a kitchen garden. You were doing this as a job, and you were just so, I want to say, pragmatic, dogmatic, none of those matics. You were so, I'll find the right word, hang on. And I just liked that really matter of fact, right, I need to get this done approach, and that we just got to see you planting the veg and you explaining why you were growing the different things that you were growing. So, if anybody hasn't found your channel yet, would you like to tell everybody what your channel is called?
My channel is called Torsi Wooldridge Kitchen Gardener, and I'm just trying to help people grow vegetables. Yeah,
and it's great. It's a really nice channel.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Torsi, thank you so much for joining me today.
That's been wonderful. Thank you very much for having me.
And so, wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for today, I hope it's a good one. And I also hope you'll join me again next time.
The podcast you've been listening to is a By the Farm production. All rights reserved.